The exterior of the car is fully done, and because the templates for exterior are created a little bit differently than for interior, I will spend this chapter on the creating of this exterior templates. To create templates in Photoshop format, that means PSD file, we need two things: first UVW template, and second ambient occlusion or shadow render. So let's start from the UVW templates. We are going to UVW editor. That's our mesh we organized already. We can pick one ID from this list, and now we have to render this to white, black and white texture by this option. We are picking the size of the final texture. In our situation is that size. Uncheck show overlap, uncheck seam edges. If you left seam edges checked, all seams edges on the UVW space in the final render will be green or white or yellow, depends on the color you set here, and you don't want that. Well, just click render UV template, save this somewhere as bitmap, and that's all. Same things with other IDs. Just remember about setting the size of the texture that you want to use at the end. That's a rim, tire sight, and tire thread. That's all about UVW templates. We can now hide this object, these marks. Now shadow rendering. Shadow rendering are done with render to texture ability tool, render to texture tool. That's spare around here, that's a half spare with a self-illuminating material on. That's our light source. As you can see, it's fully symmetrical. That means we are going to put our ready car, our mapped car, inside of it, in the center of it. So let's do it. Port, merge. Let's pick body parts, body, bonnet, engine cover, wheels. Right, I think I choose everything. That's our car. It should be not too big in this scene. It can be bigger than it is now, but it cannot be bigger than the spare itself, because it's our source light, and we want to the light and the shadow, the rays lay on the car pretty nicely. Now the car needs a special material. That's also V-Ray material. I'm using V-Ray method. That's to be honest, pretty old method, introduced to me by Raymond Schramm and Cohen Kalai. We used that in our 2007 Formula 1 mode. And since then I did many tests with other renderers like Mental Ray, Standard Renderer, etc. But I was most satisfied with V-Ray outcome. Most important thing for me in this shadow rendering is the balance of this shadow through the top of the car and the sides of the car. I don't want the side of the car to be too dark comparing to the top, and that's what V-Ray gives me. You can see here that's pretty much standard V-Ray material, nothing really changing this, only the shadow diffuse color is changed. So let's apply this material. As you can see, the car turned gray. Now we need to pick the objects we want to render. For example, let's look on the back of the car. We have the, let's say, bonnet, back bonnet with these 4 wings. Inside is engine cover, and under the engine cover is hidden the engine itself. First thing we will do is to render just this cover, because we are going to remove it. After this, we are going to render just the engine cover inside, this small, well, let me show you it in a better manner. First we have to render this. Because this object affects shading of the things that under it. After we render this, we are going to delete it and render this. When we are done with this engine cover, we also delete it. You can see the engine is inside. And now we are going to render first body ID, the rest parts of the body ID, second chassis ID with the engine, etc., and Windows ID. Also, this window would be affected by the objects I just deleted. I don't really have to go back with them because I'm not going to render whole map, as it's taking a lot of time. Whole body render for the body ID took around 2 hours. Same for the chassis. Time of the amount of the time that the render will take is based only on your processor abilities. In the past, when I had Core 2 Duo E8400, that was one of the top-end processor back then. Render of size 238 pixels by 238 pixels was taking about 8-9 hours. That was really a lot. Now I'm using i7 2600K and the render takes about 2 hours. So remember that the more powerful processor you have, the less time the render will take. First important rule, the most important rule, always avoid overlapping in here. The tools render to texture will render everything that is placed inside this square. If you will overlap, for example, few IDs, let's say all of them, you will receive really big mess as outcome. That's why I moved all the mesh using these coordinates, because we have to keep the exact places of each object in the view VW space, and we can do this only with this coordinate tool. I moved everything up because I will now move each part down, right? So let's say -2. Now in road cars, not that important, but in many other cars, always try to get rid of every overlapping. For example, this part is overlapped. In this car it won't affect anything, but in many cars overlapped parts are treated by the shading, by the rays differently, and the result will be also mess. So always left only one part of each object in the mesh in this UVW editor. Second important rule: if you are not going to map to render Windows parts, glass parts, always delete them. For example, why? For example, in the back of the car, when we have the engine, there's a window, side windows, that will cut off some of the brightness inside of it. In real life, the rays, light rays, can penetrate the windows, the glass, but in here, with this material on this car, V-ray light cannot. So always delete map, always delete polygons with glass ID with transparency. Everything that's going to be transparent has to be deleted. I think that's all about normal car. I will only show you how will it look while working. One more important thing: during the rendering, your processor will be pretty much stressed. It will be stressed up to 99% of its abilities. If you created a powerful machine with really cutting costs, for example, you bought a really good processor but weak motherboard and really weak cooling system, I would suggest not to use this method, because when your computer will going to be stressed by many hours on the max power of the processor, it will heat a lot, create a lot of heat, and it make take a malfunction or just smoke down, burn down. Next important thing: while doing the render, your machine will be really slow. You can, for example, watch a movie during the render, but loading the movie into the movie into the software that will display the movie will take a much more time. Browsing the internet with the browser will also take a lot more time for loading the web page. So be prepared for that your computer during the render will become just dead to the world. So remember about that. So if you just plan your timing for rendering, for example, I'm usually setting the renders to start when I'm going out of from home or when I go sleep, and when I'm back or awake in the morning, the final work is ready, and I'm not annoyed because I cannot use the computer when I need it. Right, let's hit 0. Pop-up window with render to texture is now available. Few important things in here. First, select object settings, enabled padding 2. What does it mean? It means that the render will go further outside the mesh we created in the UVW template by 2 points by 2 pixels. It's really important because when you do the seam edges on the body, for example, let's say that seam edge is going through the center of the body of the bonnet, and if you set the padding into 2 as 2 amount of 2, this edge in here, this connection will be not visible. It will really nicely connect both objects from the textures. But if you set the padding to 0, the seam edge here will be visible in the texture because of the shading. So always padding set to 2. Map coordinates. Use existing channel. That means the renderer will use the mapping layout you created. If you pick use automatic unwrap, the Max will unwrap the car in some randomly way. So just use existing channel with always channel 1. Sometimes number of the channel is changed by the Max. Always make sure that's channel 1, because channel 1 is what you want to render. Hit add. We need to add V-Ray complete map because we are going to render how it look on the car now. When we added this, we are hitting three dots. We need to set a place where the file will be saved. Also the type of the file. I'm always saving it as bitmap. Yes, of course. RGB 24 bits, 16.7 million color. That's right. Now we are picking size. I'm going to use really small size just to save the time of the video. Normally I'm using this, and this takes around 2 hours, sometimes more. This takes around hour 50 minutes. This is 10-15 minutes, and that should be done in less than 2-3 minutes. And that's all settings we need. If we set the UVW mesh inside the UVW editor correctly and right, we will create a really good shadow render. Let's wait for a moment because sometimes it freezes for a second, for sometimes a little bit longer at the beginning. Do not try to move something around here because Max will crash. Just wait until in this black square those white square will be shown. Let's scale it up a little bit to move it closer. As you can see, the V-Ray first calculate more or less the points for the render, then it's creating the shadow more precisely. It will always create 2 renders, but if it's done with first render, you can cancel the render and use only the first. The quality will be the same, so nothing really important. It's not important, not needed to wait for the second render to be finished. As you can see, that's our final render. Max freezed again for a moment because it is starting to creating a second render. Just when it starts, I'm going to cancel it alright by hitting escape button. And that's for body. Now the rims. As you can see, the rims are different. You can not render them in the orientation like they are now. Let's leave only one only one wheel. You can't render in this orientation because it won't have the shadow overlay the same in this part and this part. One of it will be too dark, one of it will be too bright. How to avoid that problem? We need to make this rim fall on a side. Now it's fully symmetrical. Let's go to UVW editor. ID of the rim -2, also coordinates. Remember, always move it while rendering with coordinates, not by hand. If you are not going to render something more around here, you can move it away from with hand, but if any part is going to be rendered in the future, use coordinates. Now you might think it's okay, but remember we have 45 spokes placed one over another in here. I will show you also how to check if we have any overlapping on the UVW space. It's here, fill, mode solid, show overlap, render UV template, and the overlapped objects are going to be shown as red. Sometimes in the red color also are displayed the polygons that, as you can see, have bad angles inside. This should contain an edge in here to make it better, but doesn't really matter. It's that kind of things, it's not a problem. Right, let's move the spokes away, but let's do it wisely. Why moving 45 spokes when we can't move just one? Collapse 2, hit 0 again, set the coordinates, the settings as before, hit render, and just wait for the things that are going to happen. Let's sit and wait when it finish this rim. It's not taking a lot of time, but you will be sure that I'm not cheating around here with some kind of things that I'm not showing you. Right, nothing to be honest to wait for. And when you are done with all the renderings, you should move to, not to the max, but to the software that are able to work on the PSD files. Let's say we are going to work on the body, so let's leave only the textures for the body. Alright, that's our UVW template. I'm copying it, setting new file. We will need two groups in here. First, mesh. Second, shadows. We are copying our mesh into the mesh. Copying it once again, we need two maps with it. We are inverting one of it and applying the modifier that will show only the lines. Now you can see why we are using black and white texture, because it's easier to use these modifiers of the layer settings at this moment. You can rename it to black and this to white. background. To the background I suggest to use the colors that different color for each texture, and the colors should be as much contrast to each other as possible. For example, blue, red, yellow, those colors are nicely differently in the shadows in the final texture. It will allow you to get it really nice. So let's just paint the background to the red. And now I could use the fill option. Shadow. We are changing the pass-through option into hard light, and we are copying shadow renders, as you can see, most of the body parts, engine cover, and the rear bonnet. And you can see that only the top layer is shown in here. How to fix that? Lighten, also dark, full black parts of the textures are ignored, and we can see pass through all of them. We can collapse, also merge all those layers with this modifier zone. Now we can switch off the mesh. You can see it overlays really nicely on the car. The shadow opacity is set to 100% for exterior. I'm going to create another video with interior templates when we are going to play around the opacity probably. And well, just save it somewhere. And the final result for our car will be look like this. For a minute, let's set the color to red. You can see the car seems pretty flat in here, but if I will apply the template of the body on the car is have a lot more deep in the details. You can see a lot more things in it now, and that's why we're creating the shadow map. The shadow map is also used as a specular map after some tweakings, as alpha channel for the R factor, DTS files, etc. I can apply also other templates, such as this yellow color as a background. It looks a little bit green because of the shadows on the map, on the texture, windows, and the rims. You can see it really nice in here. Let's now show you the engine itself. As you can see, the shadow gives a lot more detail to the engine parts also. And that's all for this video. In next video I will talk some more about interiors.